Actually, everybody wants Italian sound, Italian violin sound. A great Guarnieri like David Garrett. Even of the old ones, Jascha Heifetz, Paganini was also playing on a Guarnieri. He's responsible that Guarnieri became, but how do you obtain the Italian sound? Hello, back again. This is Edgar from Cremona, Italy, and I do nothing else than creating Italian sounding instruments. And now 40 years that I do nothing else. Italian sound, this is actually my life mission. I love Italy, I love Italian style, I love the way how Italians live, probably because being born in Austria, and I go up there frequently to see my parents, I see there that shops, bistros, restaurants, they open up and they put the Italian flag and they, like flies, they go there. Everybody, Italian shoes, women, even in Austria, it's so close. They drive like crazy. Oh, Italian shoes, yeah. Italy is seen outside from Italy much different than Italians see themselves. Italians themselves, well, they're all well dressed. They love to be very up to the last level of fashion, and they really look that everything is perfect and everything, but they actually have the impression that they are somehow the last of the row. They don't feel themselves like top of the top. Living here, actually, I would say, compared to other countries, damn, it's not a bad country. This weekend here there was a couple from Australia and they took 1 month of their life just to live a little bit Italy, taking cooking lesson in Prato and things like this. And they just said, well, you know, we want to go deeper in this subject. I can understand. And I did it even deeper, and I'm now here already for 40 years. Yeah? More than 40, 59. Yeah. What is it that an Italian instrument creates an Italian sound? And now I come from Austria, so I see it in a different way than Italian violin makers. And when you see them working, they work a lot on trying to make things very nice and everything on one side. And on the other side, some things, they just do it in a very natural way without thinking too much. And sometimes this is actually, I would say, the secret in violin making, but also in a lot of other sectors and things. You would say now, to make a great pasta, you have to do who knows what. And then the secret is in simplicity, yeah? In few items, but good ones. Italians love great olive oil, this pasta, and you talk with an Italian about pasta, damn, Barilla is just, you know, is commercial stuff. They all eat it, but you know, if we talk about pasta, then they get picky, yeah? I couldn't tell them, I couldn't make the plant pasta taste, but they do, yeah? And oh damn, if you leave it 1 minute longer than it should be in the boiling water, yeah? They talk years after about the pasta which was not cooked properly, yeah? So there are some things they really are taking care a lot, and others, they just make it very quick and very easy. Apparently, translated that to violin making, you would say, damn, they sit there and they do a lot of things to make it sound Italian. And even here, I believe that the secret lies in simplicity. And it is much more simple than you would expect. One of the things I discovered with the book of the National Bank of Austria, this was a book which I bought many years ago, Masterpieces of Violin Making, the collection of bowed string instruments of the Österreichische Nationalbank. And this is just it's a catalog, you know. The National Bank of Austria buys instruments, only antique. I tried also to sell them one of my master violins, but they don't buy more contemporary makers. Okay, so never mind. I have to die first before they buy my instruments. Okay, so I will make it happen that at least my kids will own an instrument of mine, so then later on they can bring it to the National Bank of Austria. But beside that, this catalog is made in a typical, I cannot say Germany, Austria is not Germany. Austria is a good compromise between Germany and Italy, and I make part of this specific human races. And this catalog is made by Austrian. And what they do, usually when they see a lot of these violin reference books, it's not complete over all the instruments in the same way. And here You have all the instruments, you have the pictures, nice pictures, and then you have also the thicknesses. Every instrument which is in there, you see. So then you look at those instruments and the thicknesses, and then it pops up into your mind that these thicknesses are in a certain concept. What I just had the impression is that overall, of course, if there are some cracks somewhere, they lose in some parts, it's thicker. But more or less, my lesson of this book specifically, but you could actually take all other books and do a little bit research, is that one ingredient the Italians do is to make the top in an almost regular thickness. And all the others, they are kind of, you can explain them. You can tell them, make the top 2.8, 2.7 if the wood is good, if the grain is narrow, 2.6 maybe even. And then you can leave some areas where you know that the sound post is a little bit more using, or they've on the cello for the wolf tone, or along the bass part on the cello, or whatever, you can make it a slightly thicker. But more or less, the concept of the thicknesses of the top on cello, on viola, on violin is always to make it almost regular. Now, during the time of Stradivari, Guarneri, Amati and all the other ones, it took some time before they had these nice measuring tools. So they were a little bit up and down, and they just had like a clamp. They put it on, and on the other side you saw the free space, and they did it by eye more or less the same way. And then they just went through, they could feel where is a little bit, and then you have to feel and touch, and you have to adapt your thickness according to the properties of the wood, which it gives you when you hold it in your hand, typical while you're making the thicknesses. But the concept is to make it very equal. Now you would say it's very easy, and why don't the others do the same? You can talk to violin makers everywhere, you talk to them, everything. At the very end, they all agree, yes, they're right and everything, and then they are up on the working bench to build an instrument, and then I don't know what happens to them. They make it underneath the bridge, thicker, and from there, typical German way, to the edge, they go down with the thickness. And by doing this, they obtain great sounding instruments as well. And I certainly don't want now to tell them that they don't make good sounding instruments. And there are hundreds of great makers in Germany. There are great makers in France and everywhere worldwide. America has some super great makers, but they make it always something a little bit different. And then they have a beautiful sounding. And then when they compare it, yeah, okay, it's great sounding, but it's not Italian. We're talking here about general German makers, yeah? And the violin making school in Germany is teaching them from the very beginning that they have to make it that way. And what they're doing later on, you would say, yeah, they heard or saw my video and then they will do it different. No, they make it exactly how they got taught in the violin making school later on. So then they come and they show me their instruments, we look everything, we sound adjust and we check and then when I ask, then turns out that here they made it like this because, you know, you have to make it a little bit thicker here and a little bit thicker there, and here you load it down, and then I have a nice, great, beautiful sounding and looking instrument, but it's not Italian sounding. This is one part, and the other one is of course the arching, which has to match together with that. Yeah, a typical Italian arching is an arching which is always positive, but it's not full, yeah? It's you hardly can see and notice the arching and the height they are working off like this. And even today in my Q&A, somebody was talking about this. By the way, my Patreon channel is a must for people who are a little bit into it. You definitely have to subscribe. For 3 years already part of it. You can learn a huge amount of information by just joining this community. And there was somebody who wanted to know if this is now a dramatic, or how it comes that his low arching now sounds so great. The low arching forced him to do a certain arching, and this certain arching is actually a typical Italian arching. So the French have already a not so full arching like the Germans, but they have it almost negative, almost. It's like inside, which makes a different sound and is also interesting, but doesn't come to the Italian one. And the Italian has a more fuller arching without being actually noticeable full. It's the way how the arching is going all the way to the purfling. And that probably in combination with their thicknesses is just the winning recipe to make a great sounding instrument. Success is for free, also for violin makers, also for violin makers outside of Italy. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you want to see more of this content, subscribe, because this is my only way that I get some recognition here. Thank you very much. And if you want to be very nice, buy one of our instruments. They're not for free, but they're great sounding with a great projecting Italian sound. Thanks for watching. Ciao, ciao.